Hello everyone, as you can guess, the most unusual and impressive things on our planet can't be found on the street. One needs to look for them. Therefore, today, we have prepared for you a selection of the coolest finds. You have a unique chance to witness Egyptian sarcophagi, oil car cemeteries, underwater prisons, and strange bunkers. Let's get started! Such an incredible creature was found in the middle of the forest. As you can see, it resembled a giant tick with a human head. Of course, it has generated a lot of rumors online. There were a lot of guesses and even options about an unusual mutation. In fact, everything turned out to be much simpler. This is just a silicone sculpture that is designed to decorate the garden, and someone just has a very specific taste. A beautiful bay near the Colorado River has many underwater surprises, and one of them is two skeletons sitting on plastic chairs. The find really resembles a horror movie and can shock an unprepared diver. However, this is an ordinary plastic installation. One of the local pranksters decided to arrange a prank for divers, and he definitely succeeded. Do you remember the movie about Jeepers Creepers? It seems that the residents of the Mexican town of Puebla have found a small copy of it. This dead, unknown creature is very similar to a bat, but has a bizarre shape. An abandoned ship was found in the Atlantic Ocean on the Turks and Caicos Islands. It got there 20 years ago during a storm and then was abandoned for some reason. As of today, it is a great place for travelers who like to explore unusual places. Have you all watched the movie Murder on the Orient Express? One Belgian traveler found this most legendary train in which the murder took place. Of course, its condition leaves much to be desired, but you can explore every corner of it yourself. The Cave of Lost Souls under the Welsh Mountain in Wales also holds a lot of mystery. Researchers found a dump of hundreds of old cars there. The site is creepy and at the same time spectacular, but no one has been able to explain how they got there. On the Spanish-Portuguese border, there's a village that had been underwater for 30 years. This village was once called Estredo. One day, the valley in which the village was located was flooded due to the dam of the local hydroelectric power station. It's amazing how many secrets the underwater world hides from us. And this hangar was found by a couple of bloggers who like to explore abandoned places. It's surprising that no one guarded this hangar because there is a huge amount of military equipment. Would you like to visit such a place? These two guys found an abandoned house somewhere deep in the woods of the USA. Of course, curiosity took over and they decided to explore everything. At first, they noticed just a large number of ordinary household items, but a little later they came across the most interesting thing. This is a real gun and a whole bunch of combat supplies. Probably the former owner of the house was very fond of weapons, but for some reason, he never took his collection while moving. And we can't call our selection complete without an abandoned hotel. This one is called Royal York and is located on the English Isle of Wight. The 68-year-old hotel closed in 2006 and still remains one of the most interesting places for lovers of climbing abandoned places. In the state of Tennessee, USA, there is an incredibly beautiful underwater phenomenon. This is an underground ruby waterfall. Its height reaches 44 meters or 145 feet. At the same time, the beauty of the limestone cave itself will remain in your memory for the rest of your life. Do you also think that people with metal detectors in the woods are having a useless time? Now look at this guy. This man found a huge gold nugget in the forest, the value of which is estimated at $240,000. What a successful walk! In Belgium, they found a whole hangar with an old transport. Such a find allows you to immerse into the world of the previous era. Apparently, the person who collected it was incredibly rich. As you can see, after his death, everyone forgot about his amazing findings. Now we can plunge into the old world when wonderful carriages drive on the roads. And sometimes you can find a whole city under the tones of sand. And you can't be sure it's an ancient place. This abandoned village in California has been empty for only a few years, but its houses are completely covered with sand. The fact that this is a fairly modern settlement is indicated by satellite dishes that were left on the roofs of the houses. This is the Lion Rock. The name alone already sounds impressive, and you immediately have a desire to visit there. But if we also clarify that this is one of the official wonders of the world, which is located in Sri Lanka, then you shall be interested even more. This is a rock 170 meters high, and if you overcome the steps, you will see an incredible palace and gardens that will impress you to the depths of your soul. It looks like a huge improvised fence has appeared in the middle of the Arizona desert in the USA, which will be quite difficult to bypass. After all, there are 200 train cars there that have been standing for several years. It happened that they were absolutely not in demand, and the railway company did not find anything better than just throwing them. What do you think about the day in Paris? Do you think about amazing croissants, a trip to the Louvre, and a glass of wine in a cozy restaurant? And what if we tell you that there is a really creepy place hidden right under the city? It is known as the Paris Catacombs. Previously, these were quarries where limestone was mined, but over time they became like a real huge tomb with flickering lanterns and a large number of skulls. Honestly, would you like to come down here? Archaeologists in Siberia have discovered the remains of an ancient mammoth. However, the most unusual thing about this find, in addition to the fact that these are mammoth bones, turned out to be the presence of soft tissues on one of the bones. These adventurers discovered a bunker from the Second World War, but most of all, they were surprised when they found a warehouse of old German weapons in it. It is likely that some of these weapons are incredibly rare finds that cost a fortune. Back in 1915, the British ship called Endurance sank in the ice of Antarctica. The purpose of their expedition was to cross the icy continent at the narrowest point. Despite the fact that the crew members escaped, it was not possible to save the ship. As you can see, it was preserved in excellent condition on the seabed, and now it has acquired the status of a historical monument. When in the middle of the desert, you can find a whole park of abandoned military equipment. Of course, it's not in working condition, and most likely it was once simply used as a target for training exercises, but still, it looks very impressive. Rama Underwater Prison is located in Estonia, a 40-minute drive from Tallinn. Previously, prisoners worked in these quarries and mined marble. However, after the closure of the prison, it was flooded and is now considered one of the most important highlights in Estonia for divers. Lake Michigan in the USA surprised divers with what they found at its bottom. This is a crucifix several meters in size. Of course, the find was incredibly impressive, so they decided to leave it there. And this statue has become a wonderful monument for the dead divers swimming in Lake Michigan. By the way, old bowling balls are not the only thing that can be found when buying a new house. This guy found a real dinosaur skeleton in the backyard of his new house. It all happened when they started digging a hole to install a pool, and at that moment, a tooth was found. After a while, a whole skeleton was discovered behind it. Surely no one mentioned this when he was buying the house. Right off the coast of the Loire in France, there is an unusual 3-story house. This is a real find for those who like to tickle their nerves with the most unusual abandoned buildings. And although it looks like a flood-damaged building, it was built in the middle of the river on purpose, and its rather creepy appearance attracts tourists. A couple of divers were lucky to find an old rifle at the bottom of the lake. Such a weapon was created back in 1827, so it is definitely an incredibly exclusive and expensive thing. Let's hope to see it in some museum. Stories about mummification have always caused horror, and their reputation was fueled by a new screaming mummy which was discovered by archaeologists. It got its name because of the creepy facial expression. However, as scientists have established with the help of computed tomography, this girl did not die from torture, but from a heart attack. Contrary to popular belief, not only pharaohs were mummified in ancient Egypt. Despite the expensive and complex process, mummification also affected animals, even crocodiles. The ancient Egyptians believed that this would affect their afterlife and often raised crocodiles for future mummification on special farms. Therefore, archaeologists now often find their mummified remains. In 1990, in the Yellowwood Forest of Indiana, a hunter accidentally discovered a 200-kilogram stone on a tree 25 meters high. This amazing find interested a lot of people, but no one could explain how it got there. What is even more strange, 2 more 100-kilogram stones were found nearby on trees at a height of 15 meters. This rare Bugatti made in 1925 has been lying on the bottom of Lake Lago Maggiore in Switzerland for about 80 years. The owner of this model wanted to sell it in Switzerland in 1936, but because of too much tax, decided to just leave the car at the border. As a result, the customs officers simply dumped the car into the lake, where it has remained to this day. Finds in reservoirs are sometimes incredibly strange. For example, this vacationer shot a video of how he found an unusual skeleton in the water. It had a human torso and a fishtail. It looks similar to the skeleton of a mermaid, and it's interesting to think that we don't know everything about our world, especially when we talk about its marine inhabitants. Divers have found an incredibly old Junkers Ju-87 aircraft off the coast of Croatia. This is an incredibly rare device that has great historical value. It is difficult to say how long it has been underwater, but it'll take a lot of effort to restore it. At the moment, there are only 2 similar planes in museums, and this one will join them soon. And here's something else from the oldest finds. This is an aerial bomb from the Second World War. Experts dug it out of the ground, and its dimensions reached almost 2 meters. It's scary to imagine how strong the explosion would be if it did explode. Now we have something interesting for the true fans of muscle cars. Somewhere in the province of the USA, in the middle of the desert, such a cemetery of rare cars can be found. It is difficult to estimate their approximate cost, but it is clearly a lot of money. Unfortunately, everything has its end, and so do these magnificent cars. It looks like these workers will definitely take the day off tomorrow because it is difficult to ignore such a find from a garbage can. Now we have another unusual find in the backyard. A young family often saw a piece of metal sticking out of the ground but did not attach any importance to it, until one day when they decided to get rid of it. To their surprise, it turned out to be an old safe with $52,000 as well as gold and diamonds. However, they decided not to keep the find for themselves, but found the old owner of this treasure and returned all these things to him. In Yukon, Canada, on the territory of permafrost, a group of archaeologists discovered the skull of an ancient bison. Its dimensions turned out to be really impressive. Considering that the distance between the horns was more than a meter, one can imagine how formidable this rather ancient species was. On the territory of Pompeii, archaeologists have discovered a well-preserved skeleton crushed by a massive slab. Most likely, this is another victim of the eruption of Vesuvius who did not have time to escape. And this is another unusual find in the middle of the forest. While having a walk, the man noticed a leaf that was swinging. The strangest thing was the fact that there were absolutely no gusts of wind at that moment, and all the other plants did not even move. After the man stopped this leaf with his hand, the restless leaf started moving again. No one has found an explanation for this phenomenon. Now we have another incredibly suitable area for a brutal photo shoot. In the middle of the US desert, travelers found a place with several B-52 bombers. And if you're a fan of military aviation, you will definitely want to study such a find. The Euphrates River is fraught with many unusual historical finds. One of them is the flooded Hastic Castle. The most interesting feature is the fact that it is simply carved into the rock, and it has very long, narrow cave corridors. The castle was perfect to hide from enemies. I wonder how many more similar historical buildings can be found in this area. In the north of Chile, in the Atacama Desert, archaeologists accidentally found the teeth of an ancient megalodon shark. At the moment, scientists estimate the size of this ancient monster at about 15 meters, and considering that there used to be an ocean on the territory of the Atacama Desert, the presence of its teeth in the sand is quite understandable. In March 1974, in the city of Cheyenne in China, workers discovered approximately 8,100 terracotta statues of Chinese warriors during the construction of a well. They were buried together with the tomb of Emperor Qin Shi Huang and ordered to serve him in the afterlife. Now, the Terracotta Army is included in the UNESCO Heritage List and is considered one of the world's main attractions. We can say that a new unique statue has appeared in the area. The boat sank in an unusual position in the middle of the lake. As you can see, now that the lake has completely dried up, everything is overgrown with grass, and the boat has remained in this unusual position. I have to admit it looks very impressive, and the main thing is that it was not blown away by a strong gust of wind. In Egypt, in the province of Minya, scientists found a limestone sarcophagus. As a rule, inscriptions on sarcophagi contain the name of the deceased, as well as spells and prayers in order to protect his body from evil. And considering how many similar finds are made in Egypt, it is worth hoping that they will not release some ancient curse. In this video, people from the expedition found a whole collection of figurines from the times of ancient Egypt. If they can prove their authenticity, one can estimate this find at millions of dollars. In the ocean, not far from Hawaii, divers found an incredibly strange path that was neatly covered with bricks. Of course, there were a lot of conspiracy theories about this, but scientists explained that it was the result of volcanic activity. The Altamira cave in Spain has preserved an ancient stone painting. The drawings in it remain to this day one of the most important evidence of primitive art. They are made not only by hand, but also by special devices, and instead of paint, people use charcoal, ochre, and hematite. Now, speaking of curses, this man was using a magnet to try to find something valuable in the river. However, he was shocked when he took out a large cauldron filled with things very similar to the witch's tools. In fact, it was an ordinary traditional Haitian cauldron, which has nothing to do with black magic. A father and son went to an abandoned warehouse in search of treasures, and this time they were lucky. They found a box full of bills from completely different countries, gold coins, and even a very expensive cross with diamonds. I wonder what was the history of the past owner of this box. Have you ever seen a fish with a human face? In fact, this is reality. It has been found several times in China, and in fact, it is a common carp. Because of its unusual appearance, people perceive it as the reincarnation of their relatives. Not far from the city of Toledo, Ohio, a group of tourists accidentally stumbled upon a tree burning from the inside. This find was called the Devil's Tree. However, there are several opinions on where this fire came from. Someone says that the fire could have been caused by a lightning strike, and someone claims that tourists put flares in the center, arranging an unusual glow. In any case, we can admire this unusual find. This unusual find was discovered by scientists among the snow-capped peaks. It turned out to be a real meteorite weighing as much as 7 kilograms or 17 pounds. The only thing we hope is that this group of scientists has already watched the Thing movie and knows that it is better not to joke with objects from space in the middle of an icy desert. People were very surprised when they saw a yellow submarine that suddenly surfaced from a swamp somewhere near Moscow. However, it was not another Paul McCartney concert, despite the well-known reference. In fact, this boat was made of plywood and was just a local way of advertising. An unprepared tourist may be surprised by this. In the Nervion River in Spain, there is a huge statue of a girl's head which appears on the surface of the water during the day. In fact, this is a wonderful work by the Mexican artist Ruben Orozco. But the guests of the city are very impressed. And this is how your friend may look after an 8-hour flight. By the way, do you believe in the theory that the government discovered aliens long ago and hid them in secret laboratories? Share your opinion in the comments below. One of the main attractions of the Mexican Yucatan Peninsula is the cenote El Zapote. Right in the underwater caves, one can find unusual stalactites, which divers have nicknamed Hell's Bells. To get to them, you will have to go through underwater caves completely filled with salt water. However, this way is worth it to see such an unusual beauty. Now let's move on to the real conspiracy theories. At the end of 2015, many people were shocked to find an 800-year-old fossilized phone with unusual symbols on the buttons. This gave rise to many theories, including that the aliens contacted people and tried to give them their technology. Only a little later, it turned out that one person just jokingly made this model and only then realized that the situation was out of control. The work of an archaeologist is very long and painstaking, so it's hard to imagine how long they need to dig up the entire skeleton, especially keeping such a skull in mind. Can you believe that some creatures on our planet reached similar sizes in the time of dinosaurs? Do you remember the stories about the pasta monster? Near Angola, oil workers filmed a creature at a depth of 1,300 meters extremely similar to it. As it turned out, this is a siphonophore. This family also includes corals and jellyfish, but the most impressive thing is that some creatures can reach sizes of up to 40 meters. A whole abandoned warehouse of ambulances and various other official vehicles was discovered in Belgium. There's also a lot of other equipment. Ghost ships are ships that are still at sea but have already been deprived of a crew due to some circumstances. Such a particularly large accumulation of ships can be observed in North Korea. The reason is the fact that local fishermen do not have the best training, which increases the chance of an accident. Or maybe they have to go further into the sea for the coveted prey, even though these ships become the most interesting yet sad finds. This whale washed up on the Mexican coast, and while caring people tried to help it, they noticed a huge fish in its mouth, which is completely strange for these mammals. This young family moved into a new house. They didn't suspect anything, but they found bowling balls in their yard once in a while. After excavating the yard a little, they found a whole collection of rare balls. And the reason is that many years ago, a worker from one of the factories owned this house, and he took defective or unnecessary balls to his home. We do not know how much such a vintage collection is estimated, but we know that this family definitely did not expect such a bonus to buy a house. This is about how they would look in comparison if they lived in our time. Where do you think a mysterious island with a huge stone head of its owner can be hidden?